Another edition of Social Media News Live. So excited you're here. I'm still in a hotel room. Hopefully we don't have the angle grinding stuff. What were they doing last week? Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
Weren't they like jackhammering your window or something?
It was bizarre, and thank goodness for Grace because she ran it. I just sat there and tried not to go insane with the pounding. So, so glad you guys are with us. I am still traveling because the whole weather thing screwed up my flights, but I'm here with you, and I'm so excited to be with you. I missed you guys. I missed Grace, and I'm so glad to be. And my coffee. I said that. Yes, you made me say that.
I made him say that. I made him say that he missed
Brooke, who is amazing. I've known Brooke forever. Back in the Google Plus days, and we met a couple years ago at Social Media Marketing World for the real, in real time. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know you were so short and fat." And I was like, "You're so tall," and it was amazing. And so, I'm so glad to have her. She is so smart, and you guys are going to love her. But as we're going along today, feel free to mention your friends down below. Call them in. This is all about it's more important than ever before is this marketing with empathy, and Brooke is such a good example. We've got a little teaser thing we're going to tell you about later on the show that she's done that is incredible as well. But call in your friends, let them know, hey, you need to listen to this. Mention them down below in the comments, and let them know. Even if they can't join live, we'll talk with them in the comments, on the replay. So Grace, how are you doing today? How's Dallas? Is it still cold?
No, it's the sun is out and it's gorgeous. There is still just one very, very stubborn patch of ice in my front lawn that won't melt. So I feel really silly being like, I can't get out of my driveway. It's covered in ice but that's literally like a big deal, like for me.
So, Elisa is joining us. Hey, Elisa, I'm sorry. I need to get a hold of her, but she is amazing as well. She goes, it looks like I got a little sun. It's not, I didn't really get the sun. It's just lighting in here. I got a little bit, but not like, I look like I'm just an angry bearded man, but I'm not really. So, thank you for stopping by, Lisa. This is a great show. Brooke, where are you at again? I know you're up north.
Flemington, New Jersey. So exciting.
Oh, Flemington. That's
but you
nice.
You grew up in Dallas, didn't you? Or
I grew up in Sugar Land, so Houston.
Sugarland. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Houston.
And then Dallas, and then PA, and then New York City, and now New Jersey. I've just slowly gone, east.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cold. It's cold there, right? Like, it's not fun.
Today it's 57, which is like put your shorts on, put your bathing suit on.
Skinny dipping weather. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually really nice today.
Very, very cool. So we got our friend. It's me, Sabrina. Hey, Sabrina, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you're having a great week. This is going to be a fun show. You're going to love Brooke, by the way. You guys are like kindred spirits. So we got things going over on Amazon Live as well. I wanted to tell you really quick because they're a sponsor of the show. Of course, Ecamm. You can find out more about them at socialmedianewslive.com/Ecamm. But they make it so easy. Like, I am traveling. If you can't tell, I don't have my man cave behind me, but I'm in like a Hampton Inn. And I'm able to use Ecamm, my same setup studio. It is amazing. I'm actually using my iPhone on my DJI mobile gimbal that extends. I brought my Stream Deck along with me that I can switch the camera and stuff. But it's so easy. I can use my camera on my iPhone and don't have to hold my big DSLR around or anything like that. I was trying to pack really light. And so it's just amazing. I have a little beard microphone. It's a little Rode microphone there. You can kind of out of the camera, but so I didn't bring my big microphone, but it's just amazing that I can do all this with Ecamm. I can switch cameras. So thankful for Ecamm to sponsor the show, but it's really cool that you can do all this remotely. So anyway, Grace, do you have anything else before Gary goes?
I was gonna tell people, like, if you follow Jeff on Instagram, you should. He has a picture of the setup, so you see that it's in a hotel desk. I think it was from last week. I don't know if he posted it this morning.
Yeah.
But if you want to see what that mobile setup is, because it's always cool to see what goes on behind the camera. So I definitely find him it's on Instagram. Check it out. It's really cool the way that he has it set up.
Well, thanks. So, and Gary says no jackhammer though. No, but I have you're probably gonna pick up some I don't know what's going on. They need to balance their stupid laundry over here. I'm it's nuts. So I can't win, Gary. But no jackhammer to this week for sure. And Elisa goes, DJI mobile gimbal. Yes, it's. I'm sorry. I'll draw you a picture about later, Elisa, if you need some help figuring out what that gimbal is. But it's really handy for keeping things stable. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. This is going to be a great show today. Let me get my notes up, get everything ready for the live show, and we will get started. You ready, Grace?
Speaking of marketing with empathy, you said that with such empathy, Jeff.
To Elisa. She's like my sister. She and I, we've done shows. She ribs me so hard, so it's all good. I got in trouble one time because I was like making some, we were cracking jokes back and forth, and somebody's like, "You leave Elisa alone," and I'm like, "We're friends. I'm not kidding her, so just chill out." Anyway, all right, let's start the show. Welcome. Let me start that again because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm still on Disney time. Welcome to Social Media News.
On that cruise.
That's right. I'm still on
that cruise.
I wasn't going to mention it, but you guys had to. So here we go.
It's because that's why he's so radiant right now. It's the cruise.
It's not. It's the sliding. So here we go. You guys, welcome to Social Media. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C. And you're not.
I'm Grace Duffy, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on the world of social media marketing.
And today we're talking all about marketing with empathy. And marketing is more than just mapping a customer journey through a sales funnel. It requires taking a walk in their shoes, understanding how to help them get to where they want to go. But for that, you just don't want to think like a marketer. You need to be the customer. So I'm so excited today that we are joined by Brooke Sellas, and she is the founder and CEO of B Squared Media. And she's joining us to explore how to connect, converse, and convert through social-led customer care. Brooke, thank you for being on the show again.
Thank you for having me again. You guys are always so much fun. I feel like I giggle more than I talk on your show, which is a sign of a good show, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I hope, and I do a lot of giggling as well because Grace makes me laugh. So, but if you don't know who Brooke is, you really should. She is the In the Trenches founder and CEO of B Squared Media, an award-winning social media advertising and customer care agency. She's it's an incredible podcast, the co-host of the Marketing Companion podcast with Mark Schaefer, where they discuss jaw-dropping marketing trends. If you haven't listened to that, make sure you guys go over to all your favorite podcast player, Apple, Spotify, wherever, and give them a rating review. It really does help podcasters out, and it is but worth the listen. So go check them out over there. But she was also recently named one of the 10 rising stars of the marketing world by LinkedIn. But she's always been a star in our book. So, whatever the LinkedIn says. Brooke's marketing mantra is think conversation, not campaign. So be sure to give her a shout out on all the socials as you see her around today. Brooke, once again, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Well, I also want to mention that you have a new book that is coming up, and it's all about how to connect, converse, and convert through social media listening and social-led customer care. And that was a line from her book. I did not write that. I'm just going to tell you, but it was so succinctly captures exactly what it is. Now, Jeff and I were able to review one of your early copies, advanced copies in preparation for this show. And I love how it actually steps you through the process, including scripts. It even had scripts on how to respond to customers, which I always find helpful because it's always like, okay, I know what to do, but how do you do it? It really walks you through. But we've invited you here to talk about some of the marketing principles that you lay out in this book so well, marketing with empathy and that social-led customer care. But I certainly don't want to give it all away. So hopefully this show leaves our listeners and our viewers wanting more, because I definitely want to go back and reread and really dig through some of these concepts. Do you have any details on when and where it will be available to everyone right now or in the future?
Yes. Yeah. So we're hoping for a spring, summer launch. So shortly, right? Not too far off. We just kind of wrapped up the first rough draft, as we say, and we're working on kind of the second rough draft right now, and then we'll get into the final rough draft, and then we'll go into publishing. But if you go to that link that Jeff shared earlier, it's the bit.ly link. You can find our landing page that's all about the book. You can sign up, receive a free excerpt of the book today, and then I'll kind of just keep you updated along the way with some of the cool stuff that's happening in the book, some of the interviews that I have coming up, and then obviously we'll let you know when it launches.
Yes. So by the way, yeah, I want to share this for our podcast listeners. So to get this landing page, you want to go to bit.ly/B2book, and that's capital B2, like the number two.
The number two.
Number two, and book. So capital B, the number 2, and book. So bit.ly/B2 to book. So make sure you guys check that out. We were, like Grace said, able to get that advanced copy. And it is, I mean, seriously, this is going to be one of those primers that you're going to use, that you're going to keep around. I mean, it's up there with any of her co-hosts podcast. Mark Schaefer. I mean, I love Mark's book. She's written a ton of them. But this is this is just a great book as well. So I know it's going to be hugely successful. So go there, get that excerpt that you can download for signing up to be getting those reminders. And let us know what you think on social. Let Brooke know. I'm sure she would would love to have some feedback. But it is amazing. So make sure you guys go check that out as well. The other thing, before we jump right into the main part of the show, I also want to talk about Ecamm. This week, coming up next week, starting on Monday, they're doing a thing all about audio. And if, as you know, as you watched us last week, audio is super important when you're doing a live show, especially if there's like jackhammers outside your window. But it's going to be all about audio, why it's so important, how to improve your audio, what gear, equipment you need to use, should you get a soundboard, all that stuff. The best place to find out about that is they have this new platform that they are using with partnership with Alter Live. So if you go to ecammhq.alterlive.com, that's ecammhq.alterlive.com, you can sign up. It's free. It's going to be incredible training. So make sure you guys go check that out from our friends over at Ecamm. So, first section, Grace, let's talk about this empathy marketing by social-led customer care.
Absolutely. So, Brooke, you kick off your book by telling readers about a beta test that a social-first customer care concept that you worked with a luxury brand to roll out. And you said you ran this test for almost 2 years. You write that you launched a program in 2020, and in just the first 6 months, I want to read these stats for everyone because these are incredible results. You increased and improved response time by 3,278%. And then you also increased response volume by 2,229%. And going from an average of 56 complaints, you said, per month to 1,248. And if you've ever done customer care or support team or anyone, I've done this, anyone that's worked in social media marketing has done this to some capacity. You understand what this means to increase your volume and that ability to respond to your customers that fast and that quickly. And so you lay out the details of this strategy in your book, but can you give us a broad overview of how you set up this beta test program?
Yeah. Well, so what happened? It was almost like a natural evolution, right? So we're celebrating our 10th birthday actually in May, and we've always done organic management of social media pages for brands. What we started to see over the 10 years was that more and more channels became less of a place to distribute content and more of a place where people were coming for support questions throughout the digital customer journey. So when I say customer care, I don't just mean post-purchase. I also mean pre-purchase, because what's happening, again, more and more on social media is that shoppers are coming to brand pages and asking acquisition questions or pre-purchase questions, meaning I'm looking at this shoe and your shoe. They are the same price. They seem to be the same color. You offer the same things. Why is your shoe different? Why should I buy your shoe? And if you're able to answer that question quickly and then maybe throw in a little something, like, hey, and also if you want to buy today, I can give you free shipping. You're going to capture that purchase, right? You're going to capture that conversion, but only if you're there actively listening and then responding quickly. So, as we saw this natural progression happen, we started to kind of process out or operationalize, how do you take care of customers and would-be customers throughout the entire digital journey and when they want it. So what they want, when they want, on the channel they want it on, and quickly, which a lot of things went into, which I know we'll talk about today.
So, Brooke, what were some, you mentioned in your book a lot of the stuff, but what are some of because I know people are listening in, and it can be overwhelming when you talk about, cycles of the customer journey and, all the stuff. And especially for a small company or even a solopreneur, it can be overwhelming. So what were some of the biggest takeaways you got or pitfalls, I guess, when you were doing kind of this study?
Yeah. So The pitfalls I don't see as pitfalls. So I think the pitfalls and what we all get scared of, right, is that negative, right? Everybody
Yeah.
talks about, and we see all the time online, all of the negative stuff that's happening. But I say in the book, as you know, I want you to be a negative Nancy, because the only place that we actually have a catalyst for change is within the negative. If everybody was reaching out to tell you how perfect you were, that'd be great for user generated content, but that's not going to really help move the brand forward and to continue to innovate. So I want you to be a negative Nancy. I want you to dig into the negative things that are happening. And then I want all of the internal operations of the brand and the company to work together to actually fix those things. Because if you can show your audiences, your community, your would-be customers that you not only listen, but you take back what they say and then you make a better product, you will gain loyalty, which is harder and harder to do today.
So I have a follow-up question really quick on that note. What do you do? Okay, they're not, let's say they're not a troll. They're not to that level of being a troll, but they're constantly being negative. And what filter do you use to, like, okay, it's Grace again, and she's saying that, so we're not going to take much stock in it. Do you have a filter that do you run those people through? Like, because I know from doing this as well, it's like you have somebody who's always going to show up and always going to tell you what you've done wrong. And some of it can be valid, and some of it is just them being negative. So
Yep.
where do you base that filter on?
Well, there's a lot of different answers to that question, but first and foremost, to move from kind of a reactive state, right? Reactive means social media monitoring is what we're all basically doing. That means that when somebody reaches out to your brand or DMs you or tags your brand in a message on a social channel, right? We're monitoring those channels and then we respond. That's reactive. So to be proactive, we also use social listening, which allows us to listen to brand keywords, product specific keywords, conversation themed keywords, so that we can not only see when people are tagging us, but when they're talking about our brand, our products, our competitors, our industry, just online in general. So that allows us to kind of keep a pulse on the voice of the customer, including the would-be customer, and understand what it is that they're looking for. And then social listening also allows you to take all of those conversations and kind of grade the sentiment within them. So I think we talked about this last time I spoke with you all, was the positive, negative, and neutral grade that you get back from most social listening tools. So how much of the conversation around your brand is positive, how much of it's neutral, how much of it is negative. And yes, we do get a lot of Graces who are customers who are just not happy, and you can't please everybody. And this is why the whole like block, ban, delete, hide, troll, standard blanket way to deal with trolls doesn't work, because sometimes you just have a customer who wants to come through and complain constantly. So another thing that I would say, without getting too far down the rabbit hole, is, having some sort of social CRM or attaching your social channels to, or, some sort of API connection to your CRM will help you, because then Grace would get flagged in our CRM that she's just a constant complainer. We know how to deal with her. We know what she wants based on past conversations. And then we can make sure that we're lowering those gaps and responding as quickly as possible when Graces come along.
So Ian has a great point here. He goes, he says, I think it's a lot easier to balance the positive and negative when you're not a solar brand. If it's just you, it's easy to take the negative very personally. How do you balance that? So I think that's a great question. A lot of people have that issue as well.
Yeah, we try to provide a lot of support both with the clients, but also as a company through B Squared, to understand that we have to separate ourselves from the brand. And honestly, there are people who are better suited to do this than others. Some of them, like me, okay, I'm including me in this. I don't have thick skin. I'm sensitive. I'll be the first to admit, if somebody said something nasty to the brand and I was the community manager, I would take it personally. But that's why I wouldn't make a great community manager for social-led customer care. You've got to find those people who can kind of separate, build out the thick skin, but also be the people who are the negative Nancy, and to look at that negative and say, how can we take this event and turn it around into a positive? And that's truly what negative events are. They're actually a chance to deepen the relationship if you look at it the right way.
That's a great point.
I also want to note that in the book, Brooke does talk about how to approach this. So although she does is sensitive personally, she does provide a really good way of like how to approach it, how to approach like these negative me's, I guess, if we're just people. So I will note
Yeah.
that. But from this point, you go on to write that you quickly realize through doing this test that there's the fundamental structure of the organization and the need to manage social media based customer support where there was an inherent mismatch, or there's an
Mhm.
inherent mismatch in general, not necessarily with this test. Can you talk to us what you meant by this, and then what is the first step
Yeah.
in fixing this mismatch? Because a lot of times it's the management, and you're just like, everyone gets bought in on this, but then you're whoever's managing the company or owns the company is just like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. And then you're like, but okay, like what can you
Yeah.
do with that? Yeah.
Well, there's 3 points I think I would make about that. One, with that first beta test, what we realized is, and the mismatch there is, there are employees at a company, at a typical company. Employees work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That's an inherent mismatch because social lives 24/7. So even if they have, a team or someone dedicated to handling social support, that person probably only works Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And so what we found oftentimes when we were taking over social led customer support for some of our clients was that the reason why we were able to have some of those big numbers that you mentioned earlier, Grace, is because if something comes in on a Friday evening, it sits out there for the world to see for 2 days until the team gets back on Monday. But guess what? A lot of these teams, and this is the second point, are when we talk about like call centers, typical traditional call centers within a company, we're often talking about the lowest level, lowest paid employees. So they were typical call centers. Then they got pushed into being able to handle email. And that's a whole thing on itself because a lot of systems aren't set up to handle secure messaging through email and whatnot. So that became a problem. And then we push these people even further into saying, oh, and now all of these requests are coming through on social. So you have to handle that as well. So that's kind of the mismatch that's happening when you kind of dig down a layer deeper. And I think thirdly, there's just a mismatch in appropriately identifying customer care as something that needs to be the foundation of your business. I think a lot of the C-suite still looks at social-led customer care as a cost center. And Mark and I actually did a webinar together, Mark Schaefer, who I am on the podcast with, and he said something so great. So I want to give him credit for this, but his analogy was, think of customer care like the IT department in the 90s. In the 90s, everyone was saying, how can we cut IT costs, right? It costs a lot. We need to cut it. Fast forward to today, the IT department is foundational to the company. It comes in first, right? You don't really build until you have that. That's what I think will happen with customer care because it's so critical to your success as a brand, being able to connect with people and align your brand values with the values of your customers or your target customers.
That's really great advice. Gary has a great question, and I know Gary, he's a friend. He's here almost every week. He goes, "What do you think
Hi,
about
Gary.
using canned responses on social media when people complain? But also, what do you know if you know what if you know your own response times to complaints are poor? The rest of the organization not understanding social." And I think a lot of people are going,
Yeah.
"Oh, Gary, I feel your pain." So, what would you say to Gary?
Yeah. So the first part of the question, we actually get in trouble. We get backlash if you constantly just use those canned responses. So if you're just copying and pasting to a problem, people notice and then they complain about that. So part of what we do when we talk about, processing out customer care, one of the first things we do is work on our frequently asked questions documentation. So the low hanging fruit is, what are the questions that we're constantly seeing come through on social or elsewhere through our digital channels? How can we document those, put some answers together, and make sure that we have a couple of different variations to those answers so that we're not just copying and pasting a canned response, right? And then as far as if your response times aren't doing well because people don't understand social, that is one of the biggest problems that we see, and that is one of the biggest complaints. That is also one of the biggest reasons consumers choose for leaving one brand for another is poor response times. So my advice there is put everything you've got into getting better response times, because there's a lot of different information out there on what people expect, especially by platform. But overall, let's just say that when people reach out on social media, they're expecting a response somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour. So you need to try to work on meeting that. And if you can't, that's why companies like mine exist.
So, by the way, if you're just joining us, we're talking. Brooke has come. She's chock full of amazing information, but she's got a book that's going to be coming out shortly. And if you want to get like advance notice about everything and get a download of one of the chapters, make sure you guys go to bit.ly/B2book. That's capital B, the number 2, and then book. bit.ly/B2book. It's amazing. You're going to love it. So make sure you guys go check that out if you just started joining us. Tommy even has some great insight. He goes, it's not about customer care, it's about customer connection. And I think that is great.
Tommy.
Yeah, so very, very cool. So Sabrina, our friend Sabrina says, I find that some people from I find that some feedback from miscellaneous people are angry and they are ready to rumble. So that becomes very calm and fast customer care. Sometimes it's not even about the brand. It's so quick and professional customer care. They may stay around as a customer or they may not because something else is going on in their anger level. So yeah, dealing with angry people is something. Do you have to really quickly, Brooke, develop a thick skin when you're doing, dealing with all this stuff? Because it's easy to take it personally.
Yeah, I think part of how we train our team is to take like that analytical approach. What can we see in this angry sentiment or in these angry conversations that's a common thread, that's a common theme? How can we take that common thread or common theme back to internal departments, whether it's product development, R&D? In some cases, in one case, I'll give you a quick story. We had a financial app client who, when you shop through their app, you get cash back with some of their partners. One of their partners, who was a grocer, wasn't showing your like cash back points in the app. And we kept seeing this over and over. It'd be really easy for us to come up with those patented answers and quell the situation. Like, don't worry, they're there. You just can't see them because there's a bug in the system and blah, blah, blah. But no, instead we went back to our client and said, we really want to get with a developer, show them what's happening, show them what the customers are showing us so that we can get this bug fixed. And ultimately we did. So we not only were able to fix this problem by taking it and doing the deep work, we were also able to save on time and capital and energy and effort, because we could have forever, for the rest of our lives, known how to answer the question and solve the customer's pain point. But why don't we fix the gap? Why don't we fix the pothole in the customer experience instead?
Great, that's great. So, let's go back to this social first customer care concept you talked about at the beginning of this book, and you talk about this mysterious luxury brand that we don't know who it is, but I imagine it's one that's established, well known, and well staffed. But how would you adopt these same social led customer care approaches to a social team of one, like Jeff C? Like, what am I supposed to do? Because I don't have the resources to have all these people answer this stuff, and like I want to take a break every once in a while. How do you do all this stuff? I mean, you're a small business too. I mean, agency, not a huge multi time zones. You don't have a New York office and a California office and all that stuff. I don't think. Maybe you do. But what do you tell somebody who's like a social person of one?
Yeah, well, that's where it gets hard. And I say this is actually more where tech comes into play. In the book, I talk about teams, not tech, and it's really more human centered, because the machines bring you back the data so they can alert you to what's happening, but the humans make the creative solutions based on those data points, right? But for a team of one, I would say this is where the tech comes in. This is where you have to understand where are the places we can use a bot to answer some of those frequently asked questions. How can we use automation to help us be more efficient with what we're trying to get done? And then I think also making sure that as a solo social media team, you have the buy-in from any sort of like customer support teams, teams who would be, working on, a product that didn't work. So the luxury appliance brand, by the the way, is global. But part of what people come to us for support with is fixing, like, say, the refrigerator. Well, that means we have to go to the service department and send someone out to service the refrigerator. So that whole like time to resolution thing, has a deeper meaning, because it's not just time to resolution on social, it's time to resolution for the social service, or I'm sorry, the service department. So I think there's a lot of different factors, but one, it would be the tech, and two, it would just be like understanding like when something does go wrong that needs to be fixed that you aren't going to do as the social person, or you, Jeff, aren't going to be able to do. How can you create those processes and relationships, including the tech and the automation, to get those resolutions created faster?
So, do you think it's necessary to be on every channel when you're doing the social led customer care program, especially when you're talking about, and you talk about this in the book, the tagged and untagged feedback?
Yeah, so tagged and untagged feedback means we're humans, right? Sometimes we're angrily tweeting away at a brand and we misspell their brand name. So we think we're tagging them, but because we misspelled the name, they're not actually getting tagged. Sometimes, like I mentioned earlier in the show, we're talking about a brand, but we're not including the brand in the conversation, right? So that's untagged as well. When we tag a brand, we're actually tagging them correctly by mentioning their handle on social. So, you know, my approach is to look at where you are being tagged, but also use that proactive social listening tool to find out where you're being mentioned. I think more importantly, it is about being tagged, though, because let's say you are getting a lot of social support requests or acquisition requests through Twitter, but not so much Facebook, then I wouldn't tell you to be everywhere. I think you need to meet the customer where they are. So part of that is doing an audit and understanding, where do most of our support or acquisition questions come in? It's likely going to be more than one channel, but you are probably also going to see it's not every channel. And even if you're getting like one support request on TikTok, that doesn't mean you have to jump on TikTok because one person asked one support question one time. Does that make sense? Like, where are you seeing the highest volume? Go and meet your customers there.
Yeah, I'm not so much on TikTok. So, yeah, that's very true.
Me neither. Me neither.
Yeah.
Just to make that clear, me neither.
You touched on this a little bit just a few minutes ago, but as we all know, marketing is becoming more and more reliant on AI. Everything from chatbots that we just talked about to streamline that customer communication, and then even writing tools like Jarvis, which has now been renamed to Jasper, where entire social media posts are now being written in this with this AI, and it feels like a relief to marketers, especially those that are required to be 24/7, or the expectation is that they're there 24/7, but of course we know we're not. But then you mentioned,
Mhm.
despite being hugely helpful, chatbots don't always convey that sense of human empathy, and that is absolutely true, and which is central to this social led customer care. So how do you know when and how to automate? Like, when is the right time to automate, and also how do you know what
Mhm.
parts of your journey you should be automating and what should be left to the real people? Because I just know that going through like a customer service request, sometimes it's like, I need a human like 15 responses ago, like, you know,
Yeah.
eh,
Yeah.
or I never needed a human at all, and like, oh, you had a solution already typed up, and I don't have to talk to anyone. Like, that's, I can see that I can see both of those situations being a good thing depending on who you are.
Yeah. So what we've seen for our enterprise size brands, so these are larger brands with high volume, is that bots don't really work because the support questions that they're getting are more complex. However, and this is what's great for a lot of smaller brands, if a lot of the questions that you're receiving through social are some of those frequently asked questions, like those easy layups, like, are you open today? What are your hours today? Do you have these shoes in a size 7? Those kinds of easy questions can be answered by a bot. So you can easily set up a bot to help you be more efficient and help you be more available 24/7. When it gets to complex needs or questions, you can go from enchantment with a bot to enraged in about 2.5 seconds, which has happened to me, and it sounds like it's happened to you, Grace. So, I think the mistake that a lot of marketers are making is we've got this shiny object syndrome happening with these really cool tools, but if they're not able to answer the question quickly, right? So if it's not that simple FAQ that it could just spit out the answer every time, always right, 24/7, If it's a more complicated answer that involves needing empathy, a bot is probably not going to be the best solution for you.
So I like what you said about the frequently asked questions. So that might be a place to start if you want to do a bot. But I think, isn't there a way that most of these bot platforms you can have talk to a real person where they can click on that button as well?
Yes.
And so adding both of those options would probably be the best solution to that kind of scenario.
Yeah. So for our clients who do use bots, we actually kind of, I don't want to say force, but we highly recommend that they have that I want to talk to a human now option. There's actually a research done by Ubisend, which is a chatbot company, on why do people want to use bots. The number one reason people actually want to use bots is because of poor response times by most brands. They want a quicker answer. So if brands actually got better at those response times, I think we would even see that bots would be preferred less and less, which is pretty interesting.
So, okay, I'm going to do this one time because, well, we're getting into it next, but I'm going to talk about the cruise I was just on because it was a Disney cruise. And Disney does this stuff really, really well. And one of the things, so you have like reservations for like a big restaurant and it's hard to get in. And I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to take up an evening dining plan or whatever. And so I wanted to do a brunch. And I was like, I don't want to go downstairs and wait in line with that stuff. And they have an app. And so I clicked on it. I immediately was connected to a person. And I said, hey, I don't want to do this. Can I do this here? And she immediately switched me over. And it was so easy. And other people were still waiting in line. And I'm like, I'm done. I got it like as soon as I was on the ship. And it was amazing. So that kind of stuff delighted me that I didn't have to wait in line. And if people can, because I was able to connect to that real person. I had the kind of the flow chart that you went through at the beginning. Like, what do you want to do? Are you talking about dining? You're talking about, you need something else. You need to have when you're at port. And so it broke it down. But then I was immediately connected to a real life person who took care of my problem. And it was amazing. So that's what I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can set up what we're calling conversational workflows, because that's how bots work, right? So not to get too far down this rabbit hole, but like there's natural language processing, but bots still don't process natural language is great. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to say a pretend bad word, right? Bots do not know the difference between these two statements. This is the SHIT and this is SHIT. Do you see the difference? We know that first statement is actually saying like, this is amazing. This is great. Oh my God, I love this. Bots would tag that as negative sentiment, but humans know that that's actually positive sentiment, right?
Yeah.
So even with natural language processing, bots don't understand empathy because they don't understand sentiment 100%. So this is why I say teams, not tech, because a lot of times, A, we need that human if the problem is complex, but B, if we can set up those easy FAQs or those easy conversational workflows and they don't involve sentiment or empathy, then we can get somebody to a human, as long as you actually can get somebody a live human. Then yes, the bot and the humans can work great together. And that is the perfect example. And obviously Disney, right? This was a Disney cruise. I don't know if you said that.
Yeah.
Has their stuff together.
Yeah, they have it. Yeah. And they were it was amazing. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But you know who else is amazing? Our friends over at Ecamm. And in fact, that's what we're doing to produce all this live show with. Next week, they've got an amazing thing all about audio, how to do it, if you're struggling with it, what to upgrade, what not to upgrade, what to get. So make sure you guys go check them out at ecammhq.alterlive.com. So ecamm.hq.alterlive.com. And they have free trainings all next week. So make sure you guys go and check that out. So speaking of Disney, creating magical moments. We're going to talk all about that because that is important. And there's a lot of stuff that you think like, oh, I'm not Disney. I can't do that. I can't draw. I can't animate. But there's so many great things you can see that they're doing in other companies that Brooke has mentioned in this book that you can actually take inspiration and go, I could do that. I could be conversational. I could, see what people need and respond to that. So we're going to be talking all about that more this next section. So take it away, Grace.
Yes, so creating these magical moments. So whether it's this amazing Disney cruise experience or Hilton Hotel where I used to work, fulfilling these oddly specific customer requests, marketers are told all the time that we should be creating these incredible, audacious, wow, out of the box moments that in their customers' lives. And let's admit it, like for the gram as well, right? And I was pondering this idea as I was preparing for this show, and I saw this post from my friend Amanda Henson. She works in marketing for a healthcare system, and I'm going to read this because I loved everything she had to say, and it goes into my next question. She says, "I've seen a lot of Salesforce 360 commercials on YouTube for the Olympics. Of course, they're one of the big sponsors. I really wish customer service worked that way. I would love for my local coffee shop to know how I like my latte, or the hotel I'm checking into to know that I prefer a warm room. The tech is theoretically there, uh, parentheses, if the product it works as advertised, of course. And then we just need companies to truly care about their customers and to hire the brains to put it all together." I love this, and it just fits right into our topic today. But let's break this down, starting with the technology. I know I mentioned Salesforce 360, but is the tech really there to do something like this? Is it possible to get this level of personalization in our customer care?
It definitely is. It's definitely there. I think also it depends on budget, right? So we know that Salesforce is an amazing tool, but it's also a very expensive tool. So how many companies can feasibly use Salesforce 360 to understand how somebody likes their latte, as the example, right? Not everyone. So I think, part of what I break down in the book is like, hey, listen, even without the tech and the tools, you can do this as long as you have that customer centric attitude from the beginning. So it's like you're saying, we can gather so much social intelligence. And by the way, people don't just go to social media and say like, hi, my name is Brooke Sellas and I live in Flemington, New Jersey. They're going out on social media. They're telling us their opinions, their feelings, their interests, their activities. They're sharing the interests and activities of all of their friends. There is a massive amount of social intelligence available to you if you're listening.
So couldn't it be just as easy as a simple CRM? You don't have to do Salesforce or whatever, but you could start making notes about, Brooke, her birthday's here, and I know she likes this, and I mean and so once again, example, at this cruise, you have a dining rotation, and the cool thing is your servers come with you. So we eat at different restaurants each time, and your server comes with you, and they know what you want every night. So the first night, I like unsweet iced tea, and we like to have coffee with dessert. Every night after that, I had my iced tea waiting for me, and they always brought us coffee for dessert. Just those little simple things. I tipped my head server really, really well. But everybody does that on the entire ship. So taking that concept and making it, even just making a note, like I know Sabrina lives in New York and that her husband is a chef, and she's on our show every week. And I always remember that because she's amazing. She shares our stuff. I love her to death. She's a great part of our community. But I've made note that I've seen her. She takes some gorgeous photos of New York with the snow all over it. And I remember that from her Instagram feed, and I show up there. And so just those little things, I think, small solopreneurs can do if you just take the time to make those notes. Am I right?
That's exactly right. It's taking the time. It actually is caring. And I think, one of my friends, Kenneth, I think is also going to be releasing a book soon called We Care-ish. And that sums it up. Brands really, most of them care-ish. Meh. And they're not truly customer centric. They're platform centric. They're revenue centric. They're shiny object syndrome centric. They're not customer centric. So to truly do it, and if you really want to do it, you first have to be customer centric. And if you are, like you said, Jeff, it's so simple. HubSpot CRM, it's free. There's a free CRM for you to go use. If you put the notes in, and you've got these notes about how Jeff likes unsweet iced tea or whatever the situation may be, then they're there and you can act off of those notes with all sorts of marketing messages. If you don't have the notes, like what do we always hear with CRM, like trash in, trash out? It takes deep work and thought and critical thinking to make sure that these machines that we're relying on are giving us data back that the humans can then take and make creative solutions with. So I'm sure with your Disney example, that was just like a CRM or a POS or something within Disney where they can first take those first orders and then understand this is how Jeff likes his tea. This is how Jeff likes his coffee. But the people someone within the Disney organization came up with the idea and the solution of, okay, we're going to take this intelligence that we have from our guests and we're going to have their servers follow them and use this information each time to make the experience better.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't take a lot to make an impact. So I went to Sabrina, you're so sweet. She goes, my heart is melting. Ah, you make me feel so good, Sabrina. And then Elisa, she goes, I need to go on this cruise. I don't know if they'd let you on, Elisa.
Me too.
I don't know if they would. Maybe. It's this place where it's a happy place, but they might let you on. See what I did with Elisa there? I told you before. Anyway, let's talk a little more about this, because Grace mentioned, Amanda, the things that she mentioned are really kind of small and ordinary, and we've been talking about this. And you make a great point in this book about how companies are so focused on throwing a parade for their customers, and what they really want and expect is someone to fix their potholes. Like, people I just want to talk to the right people, or
Yes.
fix the product. Can you elaborate a little bit more about just fixing the potholes? Because I think we tend to overthink this a little bit.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I want everybody to close your eyes and I want you to picture a road, okay? Just a little road. And this is the digital customer journey, right? But just picture a road. Everything we normally hear from marketers about customer experience, which means traveling down that road, okay? You feel like you have to throw like a fanfare. You're like rolling out the red carpet on the road, and then there's a parade happening on the road, and then there's somebody on the road with like a drink table and refreshments, but it has to be champagne. That's how a lot of marketers make CX, customer experience, feel as you're going down this road. And I think that is actually the wrong approach, because when we're traveling down the road, what we really want is an easy road to travel down. So less potholes on the road, less distractions on the road. And in real life, through like digital, right, marketing, what that probably means is like less clicks to get from I'm interested in buying your product to I'm buying your product, and then to retention, loyalty, evangelism, repurchase, all of those things. How can we make it easier as we're traveling down this road we're imagining, not throw a huge fanfare down the road every time for every single customer, which is totally not scalable.
Oh, that's music to a lot of marketers' ears. I can tell them. They're like, oh, finally I have permission. It's okay. I don't have to. Because we get almost like in vapor lock. We have so much stuff to do, and we're like, I just can't compete with like other people. So, yeah, very, very good.
Yeah, marketers need to chill. We need to chill. I'm probably gonna make some people mad, but marketers just need to chill out. All right.
We just can't have nice things, is what happens. Yeah.
We all need to chill. So, but let's switch to the people side of this. Brooke, you write that automation is great, but at your company, B Squared Media, you've seen firsthand that combining technology with actual humans enhances those customer relationships. And we've touched on this quite a bit on today's show. But tell us how you integrate this technology with the actual human experience at B Squared Media.
Yeah, so I'll give you another story here. So with that luxury appliance brand, they released a new cappuccino machine, and it was a great product, a very expensive product, a very cool product, made the most delicious. I've had a few cappuccinos you've ever had, like amazing. Okay, you feel like you're like right there in Italy at a cafe. But when they released the product using social listening, what we saw was not necessarily tagged, right? People weren't necessarily tagging the brand, but like Brooke will use me. It was going out onto social and saying like, hey, does anybody know how to change the coffee filter in this very expensive cappuccino machine? Because I'm not seeing it, and I Googled, and I'm not understanding how to change the coffee filter. So the machines, right? The social listening alerted us to this negative sentiment happening online through social media. But it took humans to come up with the creative solution for that. So what we did with that data is we said, oh boy, this is a lot of negative conversation. This is a brand new product. We should see positive conversation, not negative. We went back to the client. We said, hey, people don't know how to change their coffee filter in this machine. And they said, oh yeah, it's on page like 437 of the service manual. And we were like, yeah, no one's going to read that. No one wants to flip to page 437 and then follow some sort of written word on how to change this coffee filter. Why don't you create a video and put it on the product page, right? So that people can, when they're searching, that video will pop right up. But if we do have some of this negative sentiment, we can say, oh, Brooke, hey, no worries. Here's a video on how to do that, right? Once we made that change and that piece of content was available, we saw that not only did negative sentiment go down around this particular product, positive sentiment went up around the product. There was more user-generated reviews and content and peer-to-peer recommendations around this product. So then sales went up for this product. So does that make sense? The machine brings us the information, they give us the social intelligence, but they don't give us the creative solutions. That takes humans.
No. But are there any tools that you personally recommend, CRM tools for social listening or coding communication? I know we talked about that there's a human element to it, but we still need the tools. Are there any that you you feel confident recommending?
Yeah, there's so many tools, right? So it's tools are a preference. It's highly subjective what tool is going to work for you. It also depends on budget. We use and love Sprout Social for social listening, but we've used a myriad of other tools out there. I think Agora Pulse also has social listening on a lower price point. There's also tools like Mention.com. There's Google Alerts, which is totally free, by the way. You're not going to get like the robust reporting and out of the box sentiment scoring, but hey, it's a place to start. And then there's like the expensive side of CX and tools that can help you with this, like Sprinkler. So I would just say, do your homework when you're searching for a tool. Let the people know when you're doing your demo what you're trying to solve for, what you're trying to do with this tool, and make them show you how the tool is going to be able to do that for you, right? Because it's so easy to get like shiny object syndrome with all the cool things the tools do. But if you need it to actually do something, tell them that and make them show you. Show me how your tool is going to help me do XYZ. I want to see it in action before I buy.
So how can these magical moments kind of be found and ignited, like, get behind those things? But and on that same kind of question, Gary has a great point. He goes, I love user-generated videos. I find a lot of my tech questions from other users in brand messaging boards, music software, for example. So kind of on that same note, everybody talks about like user-generated content. That's everything it needs to do. But like, that's hard to do well. So what are your like best practices on user-generated content? Because I think that's a great way to like ignite those magical moments, because one, it's that's something important to your end user. So how do you use that in your kind of strategy?
That's another great way we use social listening. So funnily enough, a lot of user-generated content is not tagging the brand. It's just like a Brooke going and being like, I got this box and it opens like this. But instead of using it like that, I'm turning it upside down, and now it's a floss holder. I'm making that up, but Brooke will go out and do that just because she wants to share with her audience, right? But she's not tagging the brand. So if you're being proactive and you're using social listening, you can actually get alerts about that user-generated content that's happening where you're not getting tagged, and then you can reach out to Brooke as the brand and be like, oh my God, Brooke, I love the way you're using our product. Can we share your video with our community? 9 times out of 10, Brooke says yes, right? Because we all like to be recognized. We all like to be lifted up on social. And then you've got a peer-to-peer recommendation of Brooke telling everybody how awesome your little box is versus the brand telling everybody how awesome the box is.
I have a flip side from the brand perspective of this, So I have a flip example of this user-generated content. So I work for Restream, and we have a lot of people that will test our tool. We had a whole influencer program, and so we actually got a comment from our social team, our support team got a comment that someone else had created some sort of tutorial all completely on their own, had nothing to do with us, and the information they had in there was incorrect for some reason. Like, I don't know if it was out of date or they just were not giving. And so we ended up getting a lot of flack from this person about it. We had to be like, well, that really wasn't like us, but here's the solution. And, but the person was very irate because they're like, I thought I could do this. And this guy said I could. It's like, well, I'm sorry. So that's another way that like, you also have to manage those kind of things as well. So yeah, with user generated content, it's not always like, because we didn't tell them to like, no shade on the person that did it. I don't want to discourage this. It was just kind of like, I think the video was like maybe a year old or, whatever. No one was at fault here, but it was still just kind of like, and then they come to me and they're like, how do you handle this? And I'm like, I can't. I don't know. Like, I don't know how to stop this person. So.
I have an anecdote like that in the book. A lot of people were spreading misinformation about, well, it wasn't actually misinformation, but they were spreading negative information about the new Apple phone and how if you put it in your pocket and you set down, the phone might actually bend. Apple had to meet that head
Yeah.
on, right? They had to acknowledge that that was being said, but also acknowledge that, yes, while that happened in earlier prototypes, it had been fixed by the time the phone came out. And there was a new version also coming out that wasn't going to do that and blah, blah, blah. So, it's a similar situation where if you're listening and paying attention, you can meet that head on and kind of avert the crisis that could come from whatever's being said, right? It's like crisis and PR. Social listening leads to so many different things, not just social intelligence, not just customer care, not just content marketing, but also PR and crisis comms, right? So I think, social listening to me, I don't understand why not everyone's using it because it can help literally almost every department of your business.
Yeah, and I think it's important when you do that social listening is also, do kind of general stuff and not to crash into other conversations because I've seen brands do that and that's just spammy. You don't want to hey, by the way, you can come here and we got this, but being helpful and part of the conversation. I see that a lot of times in eCam's community is the people join in and hey, this is what worked for me. I'm using this. And, there's that group, which you build a community and we touched on it a little bit. But that's also a lot of, in your book, you talk about how that works together with social listening and all this other stuff. You have some great stuff on that term that you wrote your thesis on that is so so funny. Say it.
Oh my God, I know.
Social penetration system.
It is the worst name for a theory. It's the social penetration theory. And I apologize, whoever we're offending right now. That's literally the name of the theory. But it's a terrible name, but it's a beautiful concept, right?
Right. And it's fascinating. So you guys, we didn't even get into that. But a couple things that Gary mentioned, because I think this is really, really important, is Loom is a great way for show and tell also. So I think any times you can respond to people with a video or a response like in a DM where you actually show in your face, they're almost friends for life. Like I tell this story all the time, is like Eileen Smith back on Google Plus days, I was trying to do something and she sent me a Twitter video and I'm like, oh my gosh. And she showed me how to do stuff. And I'm
nice.
And I'm like, she's amazing. And so I'm an Eileen fan, a Smith fan for life because of what she did. And so that stuff, like Gary was saying, is how you can delight and create, what we've been talking about, those magical moments. You don't have to be a huge brand like Disney. You can drop in somebody's DMs and do it. Yeah.
What's so beautiful too is a lot of it's there, like community, right? Big buzzword right now, building a community, starting a community. I don't know if any of you follow IKEA, but a lot of IKEA customers, there's like a whole internet culture around IKEA hacks, like hacks that you can do with IKEA furniture. IKEA basically had a built-in community. All they had to do was realize that conversation was happening, realize that community existed, gently join the conversation, right? Not crash in like Jeff just said, but they gently joined the conversation. Then they started gently guiding the conversation until it became an owned community of IKEA. This is how you do it. You have to first listen smartly, and then you have to figure out how to join the conversation in an organic, healthy way that makes sense. And then you can get into like the tactical execution of changing consumer behavior, right? Which is where the rubber meets the road. But this is a lot of work, right? And it has to be done correctly. Otherwise, like Jeff said, it can come off a little bit icky.
Yeah.
So we are now, Brooke, I've been bringing this up the entire time while you've been talking because it's going to be amazing. But you got to promise that you will come back on when your book actually launches and we can talk even more about it because we just got the first draft and it's amazing. Make sure you guys go check it out, bit.ly/B2book. That's capital B, the number 2, and then book, bit.ly/B2book. Go get that. Sign up for the update so you know when it's going to come out. Get that free excerpt that's in your book and you will be hooked because this stuff is fascinating and super smart. But Brooke, where else can people find out about you and all things Brooke Sellas?
Yeah, so you can Google me on Google. Just Brooke Sellas. I think I'm the only Brooke Sellas that exists right now, or as of late. That's all I've seen. or you can visit our website at B squared, the letter B and the word squared .media. So it's a .com, so you got to do the .media to find B squared media.
Yeah, and Gary says, and other people saying, great topic, very cool interview today. Thank you, Gary, for always showing up and always asking some great questions. Grace, where can people find out about all things Grace Duffy?
Well, work at Restream, and I have to do a shout out. We have live human 24/7 customer care, customer support. We have agents all over the world, so every time zone is covered. And I am not only their lead video content lead, I am also a customer, and I can attest to they're amazing. They're very helpful, especially if you have no idea what you're doing, or you just started a company and you have no idea what you're doing. And so I highly recommend that. So that's where you can find me every day that I'm not here with Jeff on Fridays.
That's right. And don't forget, our next show is on Friday, February 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. You can always find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Amazon Live. We're also a podcast. We'd love for you guys. I mean, Brooke gave so much great advice today. If you want to go listen to it while you're on your walk, you're working out, whatever you're doing, eating a bag of potato chips, I don't care. But go listen to it on your favorite podcasting platforms like Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Apple, all of those. We're there. We'd love for you guys to leave us a rating and review. Once again, do not forget about Ecamm coming up with this great stuff next week, this training, all about audio, how to make your live videos and your presentations sound really great, what equipment you need, what you don't need, and how to make all that stuff that you have sound better and how important that is. So make sure you guys go check them out. Thank you again for them sponsoring They are amazing. They have great customer service as well, great community. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Thanks, Brooke. Thanks, Grace. See you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Your video like that.
Right, you got us over here looking like a hot mess.
No, it's actually a powerful live streaming app for Mac called Ecamm Live. You can add some overlays to your video, whether it's a simple graphic or you want to have some titles or other info at the bottom of your screen. You can even add animated overlays like this one or this one. And you can add branded overlays to frame you and your guests and look like a real legit broadcast. And you can save each layout as a scene and switch between them with the press of a button.